maybe a little more. I did go to school for theater and acting. Yeah, so here we go. September is National Recovery Month. It was first launched in 1989 to promote and support evidence-based treatment and recovery practices to uplift the voices of people in recovery and to honor the service providers and communities that make recovery possible. The federal agency SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services, Health Services Administration, leads public health efforts around treatment, prevention, and recovery. They remind us that recovery isn't just about one person getting better. It's about building systems and communities where everyone has a chance to heal, grow, and thrive. So why am I here talking to you about National Recovery Month? Well, I am a person with lived experience. I am in recovery from substance abuse disorder and trauma. I also live with chronic anxiety, ADD, and depression. I am proud to say that I am not in active addiction, and I volunteer with an amazing nonprofit called thephoenix.org, which uses an active lifestyle community to support recovery. The main goal for Recovery Month is to lift the stigma surrounding those in recovery. Stigma is the negative judgment, shame, and discrimination people with substance use disorders often face because of their illness. And how do we lift the stigma? We share our stories, and I am deeply grateful for the chance to share mine with you. I first entered the recovery community when I was about 23. Like many people, I thought recovery would be linear. Stop using and it'll go like this, right? Like, oh, just go on, sing, right? Quickly learned, but that's not the case. It was more like untangling a ball of Christmas lights that was huge and very tightly wound together. The past 20 years have not been linear. They have been ups and downs, times of clarity, times of struggle, but today I learned that that's okay. I learned that it's all part of the process. Along the way, I've done inpatient and outpatient treatment, group therapy, one-on-one therapy, self-help books, peer support groups, and many more things. Even with all that treatment, I'm still very much figuring it out. But I've also come to love parts of myself that grew out of that recovery journey. My values, my compassion, my commitment to honesty, these are the gifts recovery gave me. There's so much I could talk about today, but I want to focus on community because community is at the heart of recovery, especially in early recovery, when a person is fragile and the willingness to stop may be a very small window of opportunity to help. Let's pause for a moment on the word addiction, or what most people now call substance abuse disorder. I went down a rabbit hole researching definition, but here's the short version. Addiction is not simply a moral failing. It is not a lack of will. It is not simply a lack of willpower. And it is more than a disease. Addiction is a complex disorder shaped by genetics, environment, social factors, trauma, learned coping behaviors, or a lack of them. Johan Hari, a journalist who speaks often about addiction, he's got an amazing TED Talk called Everything We Know About Addiction is Wrong. It's 15 minutes. I highly recommend it. So he once said, loving an addict is not easy, and I can attest to that. It can be very frustrating when you witness a loved one in self-destructive behavior. And even when we do stop, what's left is a rather incomplete person that doesn't always know how to let you love them. Speaking from my own experience, whenever I stopped, I was physically depleted, emotionally drained, full of shame, and painfully lonely. I didn't like myself, and I didn't want anyone to see that, which was okay because I probably didn't deserve their forgiveness anyway. That was the inner monologue. That's what I was telling myself. My rock bottom wasn't losing a house or a career. I never had a house. It was losing my connections and my relationships. I alienated almost everyone, except my mom. She didn't give up on me, and I don't think I'd be here today if she had. I didn't realize how precious the gift of connection and community are until I didn't have it. It took losing connection to understand how sacred it is. Connection is life-giving. And when stigma isolates people, it can feel a little like our friend the elephant in the story we heard today. So how do we, as a Unitarian Universalist community, help? I don't have one definitive answer, but hopefully I can inspire and empower you to support people in recovery should the opportunity arise. Back in the late 1970s, psychologist Bruce Alexander created what's now called the rat park experiment. Up until then, studies put isolated rats in cages with 2 water bottles, one with plain water and the other with morphine or cocaine. Alone and confined, the rats often drank compulsively from the drugged water until they died from overdose. But Alexander asked, what if the problem isn't the drug but the cage? So he built Rat Park, a large, stimulating space with tunnels, toys, food, and most importantly, other rats to connect with. In Rat Park, they played, they had relations, and ate all the good food that they wanted. They also had the 2 different water bottles, one plain and one that was laced with drugs. Something extraordinary happens. The rats mostly preferred the plain water. They used the drug water occasionally, but not compulsively and almost never to overdose. His conclusion was that environment and social connection shape the path of addiction. And that rings true for me. The more isolated I became, the more I turned to substances to fill that void. The more I connected with others, the more I began to heal. Spoiler alert, you guys are a big part of that, joining this congregation. Considering this amazing discovery, it's no surprise that Alcoholics Anonymous have been one of the most successful interventions for alcoholics and addicts. The founders of AA tapped into something profound, connection as medicine. The first fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous, became the original peer support group, and from that model, others were born. Overeaters Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Codependence Anonymous. That was a life-changing meeting for me. And so many more. Over time, new groups with different approaches emerged as well. Refuge Recovery and Dharma Recovery draw on Buddhist principle using the 4 Noble Truths to guide people through recovery. For those who prefer a more cognitive behavioral approach, there's Smart Recovery. It's not a spiritual program, but just like 12 Steps, Refuge, and Dharma, it's peer-led and freely available. All you have to do is show up and take part. I've personally spent time in all of those support groups, and I've taken something valuable from each one. I love the way 12 Steps and Dharma Recovery made me feel, and I love the way that Smart Recovery helped me think. These days, I spend much of my time connecting with recovery community as a volunteer with the Phoenix, hence the hat. The Phoenix began just over a decade ago when one man started going on a weekly hike with others in recovery. From that simple act of connection, an entire movement was born. Today, the Phoenix is a nationwide app-based community built around active, sober living. All it takes to join is 48 hours of sobriety, and that's it. No fees, no prerequisites, no need to share your darkest stories before you're ready. I think I want to go off script a little bit. So my first time that I went to a 12-step meeting, it was a big ask as a person new to recovery to put down my drug of choice and then also share all this trauma and shame and also believe in a God that, at that point, I wasn't really willing to believe in. And I left. And it took me about 3 years before I went to another 12-step meeting. And today I realized that, in a way, even though I do believe in a higher power of my understanding today, it was a barrier for me at that moment. And that's why I love the Phoenix as an organization helping early recovery, because it just creates a sober, fun space. So we host like kayaking on Lake Michigan or indoor rock climbing. It's completely paid for by the nonprofit. You just have to show up and be sober to do it. And we welcome sober curious and allies, which is another beauty of this organization, right? Like, we don't get sober to live in this sober bubble, right? We want to be part of the world with everyone else. So if you're sober curious or just an ally and want to go kayaking on Lake Michigan, I highly recommend you check out the Phoenix. So, going back to the script here, the Phoenix often becomes the first doorway into recovery for many. A place where connection comes before anything else, and from that foundation, people find their own paths. Some into 12 steps, some into Dharma, some into Smart, and some into other journeys entirely. Because at the heart of it all is the same truth. Recovery begins with connection and community. This was a light bulb moment for me. Recovery meant asking why. Why did I need to escape? Why did I use? When I looked back, I saw that it started early. I was a chubby gay Polish kid who didn't fit in. I was teased daily, told I wasn't good enough by my peers. My coping when I got home was food, video games, and TV. Anything to numb. By the time drugs entered the picture, I already knew how to self-soothe in a destructive way. Addiction became my coping skill for a long time. That's what makes recovery so hard. When we stop using, we're left without coping skills. We have to learn new ones from scratch. That's frightening work, but it's also sacred work. And that's where you come in. As a community of compassion, faith, and justice, recovery is not just about the person who is struggling, it is about all of us, building a world where connection is stronger than stigma, where compassion is stronger than shame, where hope is stronger than despair. Thank you.